What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football Busters podcast. We are back. It is Tuesday morning. It is, December 13th.
hmm
We're recording this at 10 a.m. And we are back with a Week 14 recap video. But let's get through the intros first. My name is Eric. My wonderful co-host, that dapper young gentleman over there. His name is Will. How you doing today, man?
Dapper is quite a compliment, but I'm feeling great, brother. It's fantasy football playoffs, so I'm feeling
Yes.
jazzed, bro. I'm ready to go.
Yes, we both made it. You got the first round bye. I'm the third seed right behind you. We're
Whew.
ready to start things off. Congrats to you if you guys out there made it. Shout out. Hopefully you followed some of our advice and you made it with us. So yeah, appreciate y'all for listening. Also, we've been doing this at the end. We got to start doing it at the beginning. If you guys enjoy the content, if you learn anything from us with all the wonderful fantasy football information that we're dropping for you guys, if it's entertaining, if you like the vibes, all that stuff, drop a like on the video. That helps us out a ton, gets us out there in the algorithm. I know that not a lot of people are watching our videos right now, but if you like it, there's probably other people out there that like it too. So drop a like, subscribe, comment, get us out there to more eyeballs. That would be very much appreciated.
Hell yeah.
Also, if you're looking for your specific fantasy football questions to be answered, we're here for you. Drop them in the comments, DM us, whatever you want. No paywall. We answer you. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, check us out. Hit us up. Links to other socials in the description. We're doing a bunch of stuff on TikTok, on Twitter, all that good stuff. Check us out.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, since we got that out the way, we do have a lot to talk about in this recap. So let's get it started with the Thursday night game, Rams versus the Raiders. And man, Baker got it done in his very first game. It was crazy. The Rams win at the very end, 17-16. Yeah, this was Baker's first start in LA after being claimed like a day and a half before this game, which was nuts. I didn't think they would even put him in this early, but they did, and it's probably the best that I've seen Baker play in like over a year. What do you think about Baker's performance?
I think the chip fully set in, bro. I think the chip is there.
You called it. You were right. You
Yeah,
were right.
bro.
I doubted you, but you were right.
It was just such a miracle performance that only Baker could have pulled off. And I don't even know if he's gonna be good after this game. This might be his
Yeah,
last good game. But it's just
yeah,
amazing that he went out here and did this. So like you said, it's just mad props to him for not knowing a playbook and going out there and winning a game. Also,
yeah. It was
fuck the
crazy.
Raiders for that. But hey,
Bro, there's a lot to talk about. I'll let you get into that, but we'll
hell
we'll
yeah.
finish with the Rams. Yeah, with him under center, it did seem like it also lifted the fantasy performances of some of the other players just slightly. Still not anything crazy, but Cam Akers was inefficient as usual, but he did manage to get in the end zone, so he had a decent fantasy day. Ben Skoranek led the team with 7 catches and 89 yards. Tutu Atwell got 9 targets. He only turned that into 5 for 50. Van Jefferson also managed to score, but only with two catches for 44 yards. So yeah, maybe Baker can provide a lift for this offense going forward, but like we said, not sure we're ready to trust that yet.
Yeah, it's semi competent quarterback play back there, but it's not anything to get super excited about yet, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, and then moving on to the Las Vegas side of the ball, the Raiders got up by 10, and it seemed like that would have just been enough. And they stopped taking risk and ran the ball for the rest of the game, and it came back to bite them, honestly, as you see, because they lost this game somehow. They
Yeah.
found a way to lose. Devontae Adams got off to a really strong start with 3 catches for 71 yards, including a couple highlight reel grabs, some great catches out there. Devontae Adams continuing to be one of the best, if not the best receiver in the league. And he didn't see a single target in the second half. So
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing. That was ridiculous.
it's like they took their feet completely off the pedal. Not even like idling it. They just turned the car off mid drive and
They
said, "Yeah, we
they
can
got
just."
out. They left.
They got out and started walking. So nobody else did anything noteworthy in the passing game because Derek Carr only completed 11 passes, and Josh Jacobs had a pretty good game with 27 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown. So he was able to salvage his day fantasy wise. But other than that, just a bad game all around for the Raiders. I don't know what they're thinking over there. I don't know what the coaching is thinking over there.
Yeah, hopefully Josh McDaniels is one and done because it's been bad
Yeah, it's been horrible. Honestly, this team was supposed to perform a lot better than they have, and they're just
for sure.
ass.
Yep. But we'll keep it rolling into a much better game. The Lions versus the Vikings. The Vikings. What were they coming into this game? Ten
Were they
and
9-2?
three.
No, nine. No, 10 and. Fuck, I
We're
don't know.
in.
Let me see the numbers.
We're now through week 14,
I
so that
don't
would have been
know,
week
man.
13. I think they were like 10 and 3 or something like that. But it doesn't even really matter. They were clearly a good team record wise, but the Lions were favored, and Vegas got this one right. The Lions take the victory 34-23. Do you have their record pulled up?
They were 10-2. They're 10-3 now.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the Lions, who had definitely a losing record, who actually aren't mathematically eliminated from the playoffs yet. So shout out to them. We'll see if they can make a late run.
NFC East has to get it together.
Yeah, true. But yeah, so let's get into the analysis here. On the Detroit side, there were a lot of positives and one very negative thing to take away from the Lions game, but I'll start with the positive ones here. This was a game a lot of fantasy and DFS players were targeting as a potential shootout, and that's exactly what we got. Jared Goff went off, throwing for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was great to see. And DJ Chark, man, he's currently leading the league in average depth of target this year. He's been surprisingly good since he came back from his injury in Week 12, and this week was his best performance of the season, as he went 6 for 94 and 1. So he's actually somebody that I like quite a bit as we roll into the fantasy playoffs. If he is available on waiver wires, go check for him. Amon-Ra led the team in targets again, as he's done for seemingly every game that he's been healthy, 6 for 68. He didn't get in the end zone, but still pretty good game. That's kind of Amon-Ra's floor that we're used to at this point. And then Josh Reynolds and Jameson Williams got into the action as well. Both of them scored, and Jameson Williams had, a big deep bomb. I think it was a 41-yard score to start the game. But let's pump the brakes a little bit. He only got 13 snaps, and the Lions have been really, really patient with his recovery so far. I expect that to continue going forward. Potentially somebody you could look at picking up, but I don't know that he's going to be a huge difference maker as we get into the playoffs. Also worth noting, the Lions' run defense, man, went from worst in the league to pretty elite, like top 10 in the league. Something also that we should be keeping in mind as we go into the playoffs, just when it comes to matchups, that they are not a soft run defense anymore. So I wanted to make sure to throw that in there. Mm-hmm. And then the one negative thing, DeAndre Swift, bro. We thought last week was, the tides had turned. We thought that they gave the backfield back to Swift. Not so fast, says Dan Campbell. He was only on the field for 36% of the snaps. He only got 9 touches. Jamal Williams and Justin Jackson saw 37 and 20% of the snap share, respectively. So we're back with this same situation again.
Yeah, that sucks to see, bro, because DeAndre Swift, again, I don't understand what they're doing with him at all. But
yeah,
I don't get it. I can't even try to understand it. And Jameson Williams, able to score in 13 snaps, incredibly encouraging, at least in the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe not for the rest of this season, but next season for sure. Especially if you have him in Dynasty, you might have somebody special, man, because kid's good. And then moving over to the Minnesota side of the ball, Minnesota. What a game from Kirk and Jay Jettas, bro. The Vikings couldn't get anything going on the ground because Dalvin, 15 carries for 23, so they had to get everything through the air. And, they did. Even though they didn't come out on top, they still got a lot done through the air. Kirk throwing for 425 yards and 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson saw 37% of these targets. He turned it to 11 catches for 223 yards. Probably the most quiet 200-yard game I've ever seen because no one was really talking about it.
Wild that didn't blow up.
Yeah, and it could have been an even bigger day, He had a huge catch on the sideline, broke a tackle, was running free to the end zone, but the ref called him out of bounds. And on the replay, he never stepped out.
Big yikes.
Never stepped out.
That was unfortunate. Like, he's still balled, obviously, for people's fantasy teams, but it was huge for the game. The game was really tight at that point, and they could have made it a lot tighter. But yeah, then for fantasy-wise, Kirk and Jay Jettas would have been even better.
Yeah, it's just that fucking sucks. They couldn't have gone back and fixed that. When did they realize he didn't step out of bounds?
Like immediately on replay.
But you can't make any type of decision based on that to say like he didn't step out.
They blew the whistle and stopped the play. Yeah. If they had let it play through, I think they could have come back and ruled him out of bounds. But because they stopped it, they couldn't overturn that.
And inadvertent whistles, man. As you guys, you guys don't know, but me and Eric used to both be referees as well, so we do kind of know a little something, not a lot, just a little something. Going on to the next piece, Mr. T.J. Watkinson continues to see a ton of volume, went 6 for 77, and Adam Thielen, somebody we talked about a little bit in the news and injuries update. If you guys haven't watched that, check that out as well. Quick plug. But Adam Thielen went 7 for 65 in a tug, so great day for Adam Thielen as well. Hopefully he'll be able to play this week, but we got to keep an eye on his status. So Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then on to we're pinballing here, bouncing back and forth between good matchups and bad matchups. The Ravens versus the Steelers was just a really really ugly game. The Ravens do come out on top with a victory, 16-14. It was going to be terrible anyway, but it definitely didn't help that both of the starting quarterbacks in this one got hurt. Baltimore was already down Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley was the starter going into this one, and he took a big hit to the head and neck area. Also got his ankle rolled up on the same play. Um, we have now heard since I wrote this up that he is in the concussion protocol, but we've yet to hear anything about the ankle or what his availability is going to be for this week. So that's something to monitor going forward. Mark Andrews, man, he's just not getting it done. He hasn't scored 10 half PPR fantasy points since week 6. Isn't
Yeah.
that crazy? He's
It's
still the tight end too, but yeah,
it's absolutely insane. I think it's more crazy that he's still the tight end too, though, and he didn't
shows
play
you.
for like 3 or 4 of those weeks as well.
Yeah, shows you just how bad the tight end landscape is this year. But yeah, he only managed 2.7 points this week. It's a struggle bus for that whole offense. The running game did save the Ravens in this one. J.K. Dobbins was back, and Gus Edwards split the snaps with him, but Dobbins was much more effective. Dobbins actually went 15 for 120, and this performance was really encouraging. I do want to emphasize that I'm not totally down on J.K. Dobbins, but he clearly isn't 100% yet. He had a big run that he broke off for like 40 something yards. And if he was healthy, if this was him prior to the ACL tear and the rest of the damage in his knee, he would have housed that easily. But he got caught from behind. His stride was clearly weird. He was running with a weird gait, like he was favoring that leg. So definitely something to keep in mind. But it is worth noting that the Ravens have the easiest remaining schedule for running backs. So Dobbins and Edwards could both be startable in the fantasy stretch.
True, true, makes sense. And yeah, that J.K. Dobbins, like that long run, just watching that gait was kind of that run form was kind of crazy.
Yeah, he doesn't look good.
Looked a little stiff,
But I mean,
but it comes
the
with the scar
the
tissue, all that stuff too. But
true, yeah. But I mean, the stat line was good, so that's what matters for fantasy, at least right now.
yeah, so we'll see how it is going forward. And then moving over to the Pittsburgh side of the ball, somebody we actually forgot to talk about in our injury news
Oh,
and recap.
shoot, yeah.
Yeah, I just realized that. I went back to look and check.
Whoops.
We forgot to talk about it, but hey, you guys are going to get to hear it here.
Yes,
Kenny
sir.
Pickett left this game early with a concussion, and this is his second one of the season. So, he exited the game, didn't return. And Mitchell Trubisky came back in and threw 3 interceptions. So, Steelers are in a great place right now.
Typical Mitch.
Typical Mitch Trubisky. Then we got Mr. Najee Harris. Couldn't really find any room against the Ravens' stout run defense. However, he was still able to find the end zone, so that kind of saved the day. He went 12 for 33 in a tug. Also, Jalen Warren was fully healthy for this game and took the third down and 2-minute duties from Najee. So that's pretty big news right there. Something that we didn't really think Najee would lose, especially as much as he was used as a receiver last year. But hey, Steelers are doing what
Yeah,
the Steelers do, man.
Jalen Warren did kind of get that job early in the season, and then when he got hurt, he started to lose it. So
Ah.
it's not totally out of left field, but yeah, I see what you're saying because
But
Najee is clearly capable of that as well.
I was about to say, I'm just saying just in general because I feel like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he caught so many passes last year. Now this year, that
Yeah.
he can't catch.
It does seem like that is weird.
And then Mr. Deontay Johnson and George Pickens both had decent days with 82 and 78 yards, respectively. Fun fact, this was Deontay's first game of the season where his actual fantasy points were higher than his expected fantasy points. So,
Finally,
hey, about time.
good for him.
Yeah, good. Golf clap for Deontay. Next up, we got Mr. Pat Fryermuth, only on the field for 56% of the snaps. He still saw the second most targets on the team, though, with 6. And he scored, so he saved people that started him. But in the second straight week of decreased usage, and this is the second straight week of decreased usage, and definitely something to be aware of as we head into the playoffs. Now, like we said earlier, the tight end landscape for fantasy is kind of ass to begin with.
Yeah, you're
but,
starting Pat. Like somebody in your league is starting Pat.
But you're at the very least, you're going to open it up and you're going to take a look at his stats. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to say, damn, this isn't great.
I wish I had other options.
And then you're going to start him.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. I didn't realize these were both divisional matchups here. The Bengals and the Browns also played. All of the AFC North was playing each other. The Bengals take this one pretty easily, 23-10. Damn, that was a loud notification on my laptop. Holy shit.
No, you're good.
um, but yeah, Cincinnati. Like I said, they take this one pretty easily. The biggest fantasy story from this game, though, in my opinion, was T. Higgins. Man, that hurt a lot of fantasy owners that were counting on him going into the playoffs. He was added to the injury report during the week with a hamstring injury, so he was a little bit of a risky start to begin with. But he had been cleared of an injury designation by the team coming into this game, and then he only ended up playing one snap. That was it. He was done after that. We didn't find out until after the game that he had suffered a setback in pregame warmups. Brutal for those that were counting on him going into the playoffs. Yeah, I don't have him really anywhere, but that pissed me off for the people that had him and were counting on him. That's just wild
Yeah,
from
that's
Cincinnati to not report that at all.
yeah, that's ass, honestly. And then to have him come out there and play one snap, and then take him out,
Yeah,
just say, "Well, he was limited.
yeah,
He was on a pitch count. Come on."
ridiculous. And then I don't have this on here, but Tyler Boyd also left this one after one snap, I think, with a dislocated finger. It's looking like he's day to day. They're talking about one, maybe two missed games. So we'll see what his status is going forward. Burrow wasn't that great in this game. He only managed 16 and a half fantasy points, but he didn't have to be. They were beating the Browns pretty easily. Jamar Chase, 8, though, with Higgins out. He saw 15 targets, good for a 45% target share, which is just massive. He caught 10 of them for 119 yards and a touchdown. Huge game for Jamar. You love to see it. And then Joe Mixon returned to this game after a 2-game absence due to a concussion. He was on the field for 39 snaps to Samaje Perine 29. Perine actually ran more routes and saw one more target than Mixon, but Mixon still got most of the opportunities. His stat line was 14 carries for 96 yards, as well as 2 receptions for 10 yards.
You think P. Ryan's going to continue to be on the field this much?
I don't know about this much. I think that, Joe Mixon, maybe they were easing him back. Weird
Mm-hmm.
to say, though, if he's fully cleared from a concussion, I don't know why they would need to ease him.
Yeah,
Um, but I do think that P. Ryan has earned a little bit more opportunities than he was getting earlier in the season. He's played well.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I've liked Samaje P. Ryan ever since we had him at Washington when we
Yeah,
drafted him. So I think he's getting his chance now, and he's making the most out of it. So good on him. And the
yep,
team's been performing better when he's out there on the field too.
true.
Moving over to Cleveland, the Tickler went from 0 offensive touchdowns last week to 1, so that's improvement for Deshaun Watson out there. Also,
A
just
little bit.
seems like the team is just more willing to let him air the ball, air it out more than Brissett was because they
Yeah,
let him throw it 42 times, which is kind of insane. But hey, Donovan Peoples-Jones was on the field for 100% of the snaps. He got 13 targets and racked up 8 catches for 114 yards. So it's good to see that he's still going to be involved even after the quarterback change occurred. David Njoku also had a nice bounce back game after missing last week due to a knee injury. Said he needed to be out there on the field with Deshaun Watson. Said there was nothing more he wanted in the world than to
he
be out
wasn't
there on the
lying.
field with Deshaun Watson. And yeah, he meant it. 7 catches, 59 yards, and a tug. Oh, maybe shouldn't say that with Deshaun Watson. Seven, 7 catches, 59 yards, and a touchdown. Uh,
Damn.
and the Browns were on the road. So, of course, Amari Cooper had a bad game. So, 2 catches, 42 yards. Nick Chubb couldn't really find any running room in this one with 14 carries for 34 yards. And he scored under 10 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. So, Nick Chubb might be worse with the tickler there. But, stands to be seen. It's only the second game with the tickler, technically, out of those 4 games.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we'll see.
Just
But
trending down, something to be aware of.
But yeah, that's the fucked up thing, though. You got to start Nick Chubb. You have to.
Yeah,
Unless
yeah.
you picked up
I,
somebody later. Like, maybe you have a Zonovan Knight, and you're like, maybe. But
even that, yeah,
I'm
it's
not.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The Bengals are actually a pretty good defense. They've been good against the pass and the run, so it could just be matchup based. But yeah, we'll have to see with him as we get into the fantasy playoffs. And then we have the Bills and the Jets. That ended up being a pretty tight matchup. The Bills did win this one 20-12. And we can probably, it was a fairly disappointing fantasy performance for almost everybody involved, but we can probably blame most of that on the weather. It was a wintry mix coming down throughout the game along with some wind. So keep that in mind when looking at the box scores here. Even so, Josh Allen did have a disappointing day as a passer. He only completed 16 passes for 147 yards and a touchdown, but he still got there for fantasy. Got the 20 fantasy points by running for 47 yards and another score. It seems like he's just impervious to bad fantasy games. It doesn't really matter how he gets it done. He just always does. So That's Josh Allen for you.
Hmm.
But nobody else really did much in this one. Dawson Knox, I guess, had a pretty good game, 4 for 41 and 1 at the tight end position. That's actually great. I shouldn't understate it. But Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, they were all held to 3 catches for less than 40 yards. So really disappointing from the receiver group. Um, and then I'm not sure if everybody was surprised, but I think a lot of us probably thought that James Cook was starting that takeover of the backfield. Devin Singletary said not so fast. He got the majority of the snaps in this game. Neither of them really contributed too much, but it does seem like the Bills just trust Devin Singletary more. And when they're in tight matchups where they really need, I don't know, somebody to not fumble the ball or somebody to get those tough yards, they're looking at Devin Singletary over James Cook.
I mean, it makes some sense. He's been there with the team; they're familiar with him. He doesn't fumble that much either, so it does make
Yeah.
some sense, I guess. And moving over to the Jet side of the ball, Mr. Zonovan Knight actually looks pretty legit. 17 carries for 71 yards and a touchdown. Michael Carter actually outsnapped Knight in his first game back from the ankle injury, but he was outtouched by 19-8 by Knight. So, yeah, it's looking like they're leaning a lot. They like Zonovan Knight a lot, it seems. So, might be the guy moving forward. And then Mike White took a beating in this game. We talked about it more in the injury news. You want to check that out, but took
Yeah.
2 really big hits that caused him to leave the game, but he came back from both of them. And he may be dealing with a rib injury, so it's something to monitor throughout the week. But the team is preparing as if he's going to be the starter next week. So,
Yeah.
and then Garrett Wilson had another nice game, 6 catches, 78 yards, and Elijah Moore looks like he's carved out a role in this offense again with 6 catches for 60 yards. So, brighter days might be ahead for Elijah Moore. Hopefully, I'd be interested
Hopefully.
to see how this team handles him going forward as well, because he's already said he's not super happy.
Yeah, he's way too talented to not be getting the ball and to not be involved in this offense, especially now with Corey Davis. I didn't put that in here, but Corey Davis out with a concussion in this game. We'll see what his status is going forward. So yeah, there's opportunities available, and hopefully Elijah Moore takes them because he's just really good. And then we'll move on to the Cowboys and Texans matchup. Man, the Cowboys should have lost this one. The Texans were in the lead for almost the entire game, but the Cowboys do pull this one out 27-23. Dak was mostly to blame, I think, for their struggles throughout the game. He threw 2 costly interceptions, but to his credit, he did step up when it counted, and he led the Cowboys down the field for the win at the very end of the game. Zeke and Pollard, even though they were down for most of it, continued their reign of dominance. They just can't be stopped. Zeke went for 15, 62, and 1 on the ground, plus 3 for 19 as a receiver. Pollard went 10 for 42 and 1, plus 4 for 20 and 1. Another 2 touchdown performance for him. They are just balling. You're starting both of them for sure. And then CD had a little bit of a down game in this one, only scoring 5.8 fantasy points. But his slack was picked up by Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown, who went 6 for 87 and 4 for 85, respectively. So, all in all, not a terrible performance from most of the Cowboys players, fantasy wise.
I love these 2 running backs though. I love when like a team has 2 really good running backs. It reminds me of
Yeah,
like the Saints back when Mark Ingram was really good and they had Alvin
yeah.
Kamara and they were both just eating and you could start both of them.
Or even before that, I'm thinking of Thunder and Lightning with the Titans, Chris Johnson and Lendale White.
Hell
That was
yeah.
fun, man.
Dog, I love seeing 2-headed monsters in the backfield and that's exactly what this team has is that.
Yep,
And they're finally starting to lean on it more and that's why they're more obviously they've been more successful since they've started doing that. So,
100%.
good on them. On the Houston side of the ball, the Texans had a pretty weird game plan. Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll split snaps at quarterback exactly 50-50, both seeing 33 snaps. I've never seen a 2 QB system, but yeah, it didn't
Yeah,
really lead to either of them doing too much, so it's not great for fantasy, it seems.
yeah,
Chris Moore had a pretty monster game, though, 10 catches for 124 yards. And the Texans were without Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks, but I don't want to take any credit away from Chris Moore. If Collins and if he actually played really well when given the opportunity this year. So it's good to see Chris Moore really getting an opportunity to really shine like this, but he has been doing this throughout the season as well. If Collins and Cooks miss next week, Moore would probably be on the line between a low-end wide receiver 2 and a high-end wide receiver 3. So it's not bad, honestly. Somebody you could throw in, especially at a
yeah.
flex if you need a flex as well. Chris Moore may
I'm
be a
sure
good
he's out
option.
there on a lot of waiver wires, so definitely go check for him if you're wide receiver needy.
Yeah. And then Damian Pierce also had a good game, 22 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown. but he left the game in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury and he was unable to return. So keep an eye on his status throughout the week. Again, it's unfortunate this is happening right before playoffs, but it's the
Yeah.
nature of the game, dog. Just keep an eye on it, and hopefully he'll be back out there because the team, they need him kind of. They like running things through him a lot, so we'll see.
Yeah, they definitely need him with the rest of their running back room looking how it is, and he has a really good matchup coming up for him against the Chiefs if he is able to return.
True.
Um, so then we get into an NFC East matchup here. We had the Eagles take on the Giants. Eagles dominated this game from start to finish. They look like the best team in football right now, in my opinion. And honestly, with the Chiefs' loss last week, Jalen Hurts probably closing in on Mahomes a little bit in the MVP race. Like, if we're just basing it on record and maybe stat counting alone, Jalen Hurts could be in the lead. I do think that Mahomes probably deserves it still at this point, but there's some football left to be played. What's your opinion on that?
Just yeah, honestly, in terms of just the MVP race, I'd probably still lean more towards Mahomes just because Jalen Hurts is working with a lot of talent around him. Not to take
Yeah,
anything away from Jalen Hurts because he's been absolutely balling out himself as well.
for sure.
But I don't know, man. Mahomes has been on a different level. Jalen Hurts has really seen sort of his struggles throughout the season at some points, or there's games where he's not super involved and the run game takes over, stuff like that. But
Yeah,
it's just tough to call because he's also a part of that run game.
yeah, yeah. True.
So going tit for tat, it's like you said, it's close. It's really close. But
It's really close.
I still say Patrick Mahomes just by a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. They both deserve it. They're both balling. So I wouldn't be upset with either of them. But yeah, just thought that was fun to talk about. But yeah, going back to this game, Jalen Hurts, he threw for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he also added 77 yards and another score on the ground. Just a monster performance from him. Miles Sanders also had himself a day, 17 carries, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I will say game script does seem to be pretty important for Sanders to have success. But when your team is 12-1, man, game script favors you pretty much all the time. So it's not really too much of an issue. But just something to keep in mind when they've had to pass the ball or when they've been in tough matchups against good run defenses, he has struggled a little bit. And then A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, both balling as well on the outside. They both had a good game going for over 60 yards and a TD each. Smith has been incredibly reliable over the past 5 weeks, which coincides with when Dallas Goedert got hurt. But Goddard does have a chance to come back in week 15. I think both of them can probably produce together, but it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're a Devontae Smith owner.
Yeah, because Dallas Goedert could very well come back and just get slotted right back into his role, and then Devonta Smith gets whatever's left. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Honestly.
And it's not like he didn't perform well to begin the season while both of them were healthy. So it's like I said, it's definitely possible that they can do it. But there was a stretch there where Dallas was getting leaned on really heavily, and that was kind of at the detriment of Devonta Smith.
Yeah, so it kind of stands to be seen there. But like you said, it's got to keep an eye on it just to see.
Yep.
On the New York side of the ball, it was a struggle all around for the Giants. Richie James was pretty much the only bright spot. He led the team in snaps, routes run, targets, and yards, and he caught 7 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. So he did pretty well. Saquon held in check again. Again, hurts to see. Only rushing
Yeah.
for 28 yards. He hasn't really had a big game since week 10. But to be fair, he's faced some really, really good run defenses each of these last 4 weeks. So he's not going up against slouches and doing poorly. He's running in the buzzsaws every week and not doing
Yeah.
great. So it kind of is to be expected.
He's still scoring touchdowns though. Like 2 out of those 4 weeks, he still scored I think over 13 fantasy points. So it's not like he's killing you.
And the team is still using him, so the opportunity's still there. It's just
Yeah.
these defenses are really good at the end of the
100%.
day. And then Daniel Bellinger was also getting some encouraging usage, but he suffered a rib injury in the third quarter and couldn't return. They're saying now he's still feeling pretty sore, but keep an eye on his status throughout the week because he may be able to play this week as well. And knowing how these tight ends have been, people probably need him. Be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more there. We'll get into the Jaguars and Titans, which was a shootout. The Titans defense is a pass funnel, so maybe we should have seen this coming. They're absolutely elite run stoppers, but they're terrible in coverage, and Jacksonville absolutely took advantage of that. Trevor Lawrence looked great, throwing for 368 yards and 3 touchdowns. And man, Evan Ingram, what a game, man. The highest scoring player, regardless of position, on the week, putting up a ridiculous 33.7 half PPR fantasy points. He caught 11 of 14 targets for 162 yards and 2 scores. If you're wondering whether or not he can stay hot, I'd probably say no. Like I do think that again, we've talked about it a couple times already. The tight end landscape isn't a good one. He's very much so a viable tight end starter, and somebody should be starting him each and every week. But I don't know. He does have a higher floor than probably most other tight ends, considering he's run the third most routes of any tight end on the season. He's definitely a fine start, but just don't count on him replicating anything near this performance again. Um, Zay Jones had another good game. He scored over 10 points for. He has scored over 10 points for 3 out of his last 4 games. He went 8 for 77 and 1. Good for him on that one. And then Christian Kirk and Travis Etienne were both pretty disappointing. Etienne was a little bit easier to see coming just because of how good Tennessee is against the run, like we said. But it's not a good look that he didn't get a single target out of the backfield.
Yeah, it's not the usage that you want to see, especially out of ETN, somebody we were highly touting, and he is a good receiving back, so it's kind of weird to see.
Yeah.
But also, the team got the win, so I guess they ended up making the right decision at the end of the day.
Yep.
For Tennessee, Jacksonville really flipped the script on Tennessee in this game. The Titans had the lead for most of the first half, and Derrick Henry was already at 100 yards in the first quarter. But right after halftime, Henry lost a fumble on what would have been a really big play to put the Titans in scoring position, and that's kind of where the momentum shifted. Henry still finished with a good fantasy performance with 17 carries for 121 yards and a touchdown on the ground and 3 for 34 through the air. And Chig Okonkwo, somebody that Eric had really brought to the light last week, 6 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. And Austin Hooper, 5 catches for 68 yards for the Titans' leading receivers. And like Eric, I'm gonna read this note right here. Hope you checked out our TikTok because we had some really good under the radar starts for Week 14 with Chig Okonkwo being one of them. I'm optimistic about him going forward as well, as he played a majority of the snaps in multiple tight end sets, and he also played a majority of the snaps in 11 personnel for the first time this whole year. So his usage is on the rise, and hopefully that continues even when Traylon Burks gets back on the field. Hopefully.
Yeah, 100%. Super excited about Chig. He's just a really athletic guy out of Maryland that I have high hopes for, like you said. Probably he's more of like a dynasty add. You can add him in season long at this point. He's clearly playing really well, but I think, you're really excited for him like going into next season. And then we have the Chiefs and the Broncos game. The Chiefs, they raced out to a huge lead, a huge early lead in this one, and then just seemed to take their foot completely off the gas on both sides of the ball. They still came away with the win, but it was just a lot closer than we expected. The Chiefs did win this one 34-28. Mahomes threw for a lot of yards, 352 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he also threw an uncharacteristic 3 interceptions, so that kind of limited his fantasy day a little bit. And then Jerick McKinnon with the game of his life, man. Literally the most fantasy points he's ever scored into his 30s. He almost dropped a 30 bomb. He didn't do much on the ground, but he was the team's leading receiver with 7 catches for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. Huge game. Pacheco also did all right behind him, going 13 for 70 on the ground. Not bad. And then Juju was back to pretty much his full share of snaps, which was really good to see. He played really well, caught 9 of 11 targets for 74 yards and a touchdown. And it looks like he's probably back into that every week starter territory. And then lastly, Travis Kelce, decent day, 4 for 71. If we're talking other tight end standards, that's fantastic. But for Travis Kelce, it's all right.
Pedestrian. It's all right. Pedestrian.
Yeah.
Over in Colorado, if Russell Wilson's bathrooms had timbers, they'd be shivering. Because Russ has made significant progress in the touchdowns versus bathrooms matchup, and this week tossing 3 touchdowns, putting him at 11, and he has 12 bathrooms. So he only needs 1 more to tie with his bathrooms, bro. So brighter days are ahead,
bro.
Brighter days are ahead for Russell Wilson, bro.
But not for his bathrooms.
Look out. His bathrooms are nervous. Wilson was also the team's leading rusher. He showed off the wheels for the first time in what feels like years, rushing 4 times for 57 yards. Unfortunately, he took a big hit on the last attempt and left the game with a concussion. So if he misses next week, Brett Rypien's going to be the starter. And yeah, why Russell really hasn't ran a lot since like the early years. He used to be like a dual threat quarterback. Now he's just really a pocket passer. That's crazy. Never really thought about it.
It is kind of weird. Yeah.
Damn. And then another name we brought up on TikTok for our under the radar starts for the week, Mr. Jerry Jeudy popped off for 30 points in this one with 8 catches, 73 yards, and three touchdowns. Like we said, Russ tossed up 3. Jerry Jeudy caught all 3 of them. So
I think I do think one of them came from Brett Rippon after his injury.
Oh shit.
I'm not sure
Oh yeah,
who
yeah. It
Russell's.
was there was one later in the game. It was Brett. Brett
Yeah,
did throw one.
but still doesn't matter. His stat line was amazing. Go check out our TikTok, y'all. If you haven't followed us already, we just got over 100 followers. We started not that long ago, so I'm pretty happy with the progress. But we're putting out bangers over there, so go check us out. Be
Hell
much
yeah.
appreciated. We'll get on to the Panthers and the Seahawks. I don't know what to think of either of these teams, man. I thought the Panthers were bad. I thought the Seahawks were good. The Panthers win this one 30-24. I don't know how Carolina won this game, though, with Sam Darnold only throwing for 120 yards. Doesn't really make sense to me. They did rely mostly on the ground game, so I guess you could chalk it up to that. Deonta Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, and Raheem Blackshear all combined for 180 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. But literally no one did anything in the receiving game. Somehow DJ Moore played 69 snaps. Nice. Ran 29 routes. Got targeted 3 times and didn't catch a single pass, man. Not a single pass. I put on here, like, remember when people were saying that Darnold was the key to unlocking DJ Moore? I mean, I remember, but like, that was dumb. Clearly he's not.
DJ Moore can't be unlocked, bro.
Yo, don't say that. Don't say that about DJ Moore. He's so good. It's not
Bro,
his fault.
it's just at a certain point, man. At a certain point, when are we gonna look at DJ Moore? How long are we gonna? How many more years are we gonna give it before we stop blaming this quarterbacks?
Can we look at him? Can we look at him like this though?
Yeah, that's fine.
That
Yeah,
little
I'm
side
cool.
eye.
I'm cool
Like,
with
don't
that.
look at him like this.
Yeah, you're not
Don't
staring
look
at
at
him
him like
like
that.
DJ Moore. I'm staring at you, but it's
But
like,
like, I'll see you over there.
I don't know, man. You look a little shaky over there.
Just a wee.
I was just saying, man. It's just we'll start that narrative though. Like I said, before, make sure you guys stick around for the off season because we are still gonna be making stuff, and yeah, that's where you're gonna get a lot of the hotter, spicier stuff.
I can't wait.
And then on the Seattle side of the ball, Kenneth Walker with his jammed ankle was not able to play, so Seattle struggled to run the ball. Adam Schefter tweeted right before the game that Tony Jones was actually going to start over Travis Homer this game, which no one saw coming. But not only did that not actually happen, Tony Jones only played 5 snaps and got 1 carry. So like, what was the update? Like, thank you, Adam Schefter. Thanks, Shefty. I don't
know. To be totally fair, not to be fair, because Shefty, that was just straight up wrong. But we've been talking up my TikTok. I had Travis Homer on there, and then we got the news from Shefty, so I was like, hey, yo, if you asked about Travis Homer, we probably should pump the brakes. Don't start him. And that ended up at least being a good thing because Travis Homer didn't really do much. But he did get like 91% of the snaps when we were told he wasn't going to be the starter.
Yeah, which, like, what the fuck? But like you said, it doesn't matter because Homer didn't really do too much anyways. But like, what is going on with these updates and all this bullshit?
Yeah, I don't know.
But, moving on to the more positive side of the team, Geno, DK, and Lockett all stayed hot. Geno threw for 264 and 3 touchdowns. DK and Lockett both had 5 catches for 60-plus yards and a touchdown. And Marquise Goodwin, why do I always think it's Godwin? Marquise Goodwin stole the show with 5 catches for 95 yards and a score. This passing attack is honestly, it's been on fire, and maybe most importantly, it's been predictable and consistent for fantasy. So you love to see a good funnel, especially when it's going to multiple different players. You love to know who the ball is going to,
Yeah.
So at least,
yeah,
Marquise Goodwin, I'm not sure if anybody started him this week, but it is good to see that DK and Tyler Lockett also did well, with Goodwin doing well too.
For sure. Yeah, so we'll move on to the 49ers versus the Bucks. Man, Brock Purdy whooped Tom Brady's ass. Simple as that. That's all it was. Brock Purdy, the GOAT, the MVP. He's a god.
All right, that's
I'm playing. I just thought that was funny. But the 49ers did absolutely dominate the Buccaneers in this one, winning 35-7. And Purdy did play pretty well. He only threw for 185 yards. Didn't really need him to throw for much considering they were leading by so much. But he did account for 3 total touchdowns, including a rushing score. So that was good for him. CMC is playing like the 101 right now, and I just couldn't be happier for him. This is fantastic. Love to see CMC out there balling. 14 for 119 and 1 as a runner, and then another 2 for 34 and another score as a receiver. Classic Christian McCaffrey. Also worth noting, Jordan Mason is the clear handcuff to own in that backfield.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only negative news here out of San Francisco was that Debo got hurt. His leg got rolled up on, and honestly, it looked pretty gruesome on the replay. Reports have been pretty optimistic, saying that he avoided a major injury. Um, we did get a little bit more news on his timeline. Still not 100% clear, but they're saying that it's possible he could be back for week 17. I'm doubting that just based on how it looked. And I don't know. If this team is going to make the playoffs, I feel like they're not going to force him back early.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm a fantasy owner of Debo, I'm definitely not trotting him out there in that first game back in the fantasy championship in week 17. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that one. It does suck for Debo owners, but it creates a tighter offensive funnel, like we just said for Seattle. Hopefully, it'll benefit CMC, Ayuk, and Kittle. Speaking of Ayuk, he caught 2 passes for 57 yards and a touchdown. Kittle was a little bit disappointing, but overall, very good performance from San Francisco.
Hell yeah. And over to the Tampa Bay side of the ball, Tom Brady, not doing well, man. I don't even got a joke, man. I don't even got nothing for this, man. The divorce must be hurting, man. He must have
Oh
got a
my
second wind of that.
goodness,
But
you need to quit with that.
it's a rough outing for everybody on the Buccaneers, not even just Tom Brady. But Tom Brady was the only player that was able to score 10 fantasy points, as he scored 10.12. So that's something right there. Rashad White got the start at running back again, and he handled the majority of the carries. He had 13 compared to Lombardi Lenny's 4. But Leonard Fournette ran 30 routes to White's 20 and saw 7 targets to White's 5. So overall, they're splitting pretty evenly, but it is not the best thing in the world to see if you have Leonard Fournette on your team. Chris Godwin led all receivers with 5 catches for 54 yards, and Mike Evans could not catch a break. He had a long touchdown called back due to holding, and Brady threw what should have been another touchdown at his feet. He was open in the end zone a few other times, and Brady just didn't see him. This has just kind of been the theme of the last 5 weeks for Mike Evans. I feel like he's due for some positive regression, but he's tough to start considering the recent performances and the state of this offense, especially since we are, like Eric said, we are now going in the fantasy playoffs. So you kind of want to start your sure guys at this point, and Mike Evans has not been that for the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. And sorry to the viewers, I had to plug my computer in. I don't have enough slots to have both screens up, so I'm not going to be looking directly at the camera. I'm going to be looking down a little bit. Sorry about that. But we will continue on with the Chargers versus the Dolphins. The Chargers did get the victory in this one, 23-17. And I just want to talk about this for a second. I think this Tua versus Herbert debate is fucking annoying. First off, the answer is clearly Herbert. I don't know why anyone thinks otherwise. And yes, I've seen the EPA stats, the quarterback rating, all that stuff. Stats matter. I'm not denying that at all. We use them quite often. I think they're very important in our analysis. But in this instance, turn on the tape and tell me what you see, man. I feel like Herbert is clearly the better quarterback. But that's getting away from the point that I'm actually trying to make. More importantly, can we just say that they're both good? Like, can we not shit on one or the other while propping up the other quarterback? Like, I know I just picked a side, but I recognize how good Tua has been this year, and I can appreciate and acknowledge that without shitting on Herbert. So let's all chill with that. You got any takes on that one?
No, I agree. I think I clearly started out the season as a Tua hater. I've
Yeah,
since learned to at least acknowledge that Tua is a competent quarterback, especially given the right system, he can thrive. So, but at the end of the day, Herbert is the more talented player, and
yeah,
that's not shade towards Tua because Tua could still have a very good career. It's like saying that Aaron Rodgers is more talented than Drew Brees. Now, clearly, those are 2 Hall of Famers, but at the end of the day, I don't have to
it's
shit on
facts
Drew.
though.
I don't have to shit on Drew Brees to say Aaron Rodgers is good.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, so we're on the same page there. I just saw like this breaking out all over Twitter. People were like, "Is Justin Herbert even good? How much of this offense do we blame on him?" And then like people firing back, talking shit about Tua, like unnecessary, bro. They're both good.
But what about Tua? Whoa.
Chill.
Whoa.
But anyway, back to the game. Jay Herbo, he balled, throwing for 367 yards and a touchdown. Having Keenan and Big Mike both healthy back definitely helped him out. Mike led the team in yards with 116, and he also scored a touchdown. Keenan led the team in snaps, routes run, targets, and receptions across the board. He went 12 for 92, so great performances for both of those big wide receivers. And then Eckler also had a really good outing with 45 yards and a score on the ground, as well as 8 receptions for 59 yards through the air. So all the usual suspects getting it done for the Chargers.
Yep. Then moving over to Miami, the Chargers had a really nice defensive game plan in place, and the Dolphins kind of struggled all night. Tua completed only 10 of 28 passes for 145 yards and a touchdown. Raheem Mostert couldn't really get anything going either. He went 11 for 37, and Jeff Wilson was splitting work pretty evenly, but he left the game early with a hip injury. I guess if you want to hear more about that, again, check out the news and injuries update. And
Yeah,
Tyreek had a pretty unique but impressive performance. He started the night by recovering a fumble, running it all the way around the formation, and then taking it to the house.
that
But
was crazy.
unfortunately, since it was a fumble recovery, he didn't get credit for the yardage, just like a touchdown. So, and also, if you watch the replay, the ball didn't just pop out the pile to Tyreek. Terran Armstead literally pitched it to him from the bottom of the pile. Yeah, I actually saw that too because I was like,
That was wild.
how would the ball just pop out? And I watched it back
It
and he
didn't.
just
He threw
arm
that
out,
shit.
tossed out.
It was great.
It's amazing. But
Yeah.
he also added to that with another 81 receiving yards and another touchdown. But he picked up an ankle injury throughout the game as well. But they're saying it's just some rough and tumble, part of the game type shit. So we're going to see if he actually comes back soon. But it's something to monitor throughout the week and keep an eye on his status. But Tyreek Hill should be there next week, but who knows? Just keep an eye on it. And Jalen Waddle disappointed for the second straight week. It's been back-to-back weeks under 5 fantasy points, so we're hoping that changes. And Mike Gesicki also put up a goose egg, and he was outsnapped by Durham Smythe. So don't know how encouraging that is for Mike Gesicki, even since the team was trying to shop him earlier in the year as well.
Yeah,
It's not the best news. Not the best news in the world.
for sure. Yeah, I don't have too much to add there. Good synopsis, but we have the final matchup of this list: the Patriots versus the Cardinals. Patriots do take the victory in this one, 27-13. But the biggest takeaways from this game weren't really from the game, or at least not from the stat sheet. It was the injuries. Kyler likely tore his ACL on the first drive. We will get confirmation on that today. He's going to have an MRI on it. And then Ramondre also left the game early with an ankle injury. Um, Kevin Harris got the first crack at replacing Ramondre in this one. He went 8 for 26 and 1. And then they gave Pierre Strong his chance. And I thought he looked pretty good. He went 5 for 70 and 1 and added another 2 catches for 20 yards as a receiver. Hunter Henry led the team in receiving, another guy that we highlighted on TikTok. So just another reason to go check that out. If you haven't already, go follow us over there. He went 3 for 70. So that for a tight end, that's a pretty dang big game, double digits. And then the rest of the passing pie was split up between 7 other guys. So there just wasn't too much to go around. And yeah, rip Ramondre. Hopefully he's back for the first week of the playoffs. It doesn't sound like it was too serious, but we don't really have a timeline on him yet.
Yeah. And then moving over to the Arizona side of the ball, someone we're not optimistic about, Mr. Kyler Murray. Initial reports are saying he likely suffered a torn ACL, but he's supposed to be getting an MRI later on today. If that's the case, the injury is going to linger into next season. What I was looking up earlier when we were having those sort of technical difficulties was when Joe Burrow actually got his injury, when he tore his ACL his rookie year. He actually tore his ACL on December 10th. And it was sort of iffy as to whether he was going to be able to make it back before the start of the next season, which he did, but not without a couple of not without some worry. Like there was a lot of news around it. Also, his tear was a little bit more severe than Kyler's was, at least so far from what we know. If Kyler only has a torn ACL, maybe the timeline's a little bit quicker, but I know Joe Burrow had a torn ACL and MCL at that point. Like they had to reconstruct his knee a little bit. So
yeah,
if we're looking for some kind of a timeline, that's probably the best case because that's someone who got injured around the same time. But we got to keep an eye on what the severity of this one is.
For sure. I think that's really good to bring up. But we also have to keep in mind, like Joe Burrow did come back and start the season, but they clearly limited him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't running the ball either, which he is kind of sneaky athletic and does do that pretty often when given the chance.
Real lunch pail guy.
Lunch pail guy. But yeah, and then we saw as the season went on, like as we got into like the mid-season, they started to open the offense up. They trusted him more. He threw the ball more. He ran more. So that's hopefully what we'll see from Kyler as well.
Mm-hmm. But either way, regardless, tough blow from Kyler Murray and for the Cardinals. So hoping for a speedy recovery there. And Colt McCoy came in to replace him and did not look great. So I don't know. Maybe he didn't game plan a lot for this week because he wasn't expecting to play. That's what we got to hope for there because we don't want these weapons to get hurt too much.
Yeah.
James Conner had a really big game though. He was pretty efficient, looked good as a runner, which was a nice surprise. 15 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. He also had 6 catches for 29 yards through the air, which was good for 20 fantasy points. So that's a good day for James Conner. And Hollywood Brown led the team in snaps and routes run again, but Hopkins had the most targets. So while DeAndre got 7 catches for 79 yards, Marquise Brown only managed 4 catches for 34 yards. So the usage is there for Hollywood Brown, so I wouldn't be too scared off of him. But again, this is his second week back from injury. Next week could be better. Again, he's also playing with the backup quarterback this week as well. So who knows, man? After a week of actually practicing, getting in there with Colt McCoy, getting more reps, I think he does have potential to actually be pretty good. I think this was actually his first game playing with Colt McCoy this season, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. And to add on to all of that, it was just a tough matchup going against that Patriots defense.
Yeah, they're just really good over there on that side of the ball. So, yeah, that's going to wrap up our recap for the week. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Make sure you guys go down in the description, like Eric said throughout the video. Follow us on our socials, bro. You can follow us on Twitter. Eric does a great job of keeping people updated with fantasy football news. I do a great job with talking shit. So you get the best of both worlds there. And if you
Hell yeah.
You check out our TikTok. We have a lot of other short form content over there. We just hit 100 followers, so we're hoping to get those numbers up even more. And then you guys make sure you check us out and give us a like, follow, and hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos coming out. Helps us out in the algorithm, and if you guys like our videos, means other people probably would too. So help us get the word out there, and I'll let my co-host take it away for the rest of this one.
Nah, you covered most of it. I guess the only thing left is if you do have any specific fantasy football questions to ask us, hit us up, DM us, put it in the comments of these YouTube videos. Wherever you want to hit us up, we'll answer you. We haven't let a single comment on any of our social medias go unanswered so far, and I'm not predicting that to change. So yeah, hit us up. No paywall, nothing like that. We'll answer your questions for free. Hopefully, we can help you out. So engage with us. Trying to build a community. And yeah, if you stuck with us all the way to the end of this one, I know it was a long video, but we had a lot to get through. But we love you for that. Appreciate you very much. And we'll catch you a little bit later on in the week for our start sits heading into the first week of playoffs. Get hype.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.